I need my bullets!
Well, it's another Friday, and you know what that means? We're going to be covering another low-star legend servant, and through democracy, you guys have voted for Tomboy Archer, otherwise known as Sugitani, and man, I hope I'm pronouncing that name correctly, otherwise I'm going to get absolutely fried in the comment section down below. But this is a very strong one to go ahead and pick, because we should be getting her, I believe, later on this year, around the time when we get Tolmaeus, and then I want to say kinda shortly after, kinda within a year of her release, they decided to throw her a really strong buff that we're going to be covering in this video that I myself knew was really strong, but I hadn't really tested it extensively for a video. It's like, oh, she got a buff, it's gonna make her a lot better. Like, sure, you're gonna proc more stuff on our NP, and everyone's like, whoa, she can do a lot of damage. But as you're gonna see in a lot of the background gameplay of this video, where I did a couple of tests with her, sometimes letting her build up without Black Grail, sometimes with Black Grail, sometimes just with fewer buffs because, my supports got game ended in the middle of the fight. And no matter what, she is absolutely able to butt blast the enemies into oblivion, and I think proves to be one of the stronger free-to-play servants that we have in this game, provided that you ever summon on a main gacha, as she is a 3-star that's available in every single summon. So strap in, get comfortable. We're going to be talking about all the things that Tomboy Archer over here is able to do, and you should be getting very hyped as an NA player because this is going to be one strong servant when she releases. As per usual, if you enjoy these daily FGO videos, I would much appreciate a like on the video and maybe even a subscription to the channel, as it is absolutely free and helps me out more than you know. But with all that being said, let's start diving into her kit, starting off with her hits. And I'm not gonna lie, these really don't matter all that much. I mean, sure, her NP gain is fine at 0.66 with 3 hit arts cards when you're doing crits, and this character absolutely loves to do crits. I'm sure you've seen that in a ton of YouTube thumbnails or YouTube gameplays that you've seen, or through your own personal testing if you actually play the JP side of things. But realistically, this servant is all about two things: doing maximum damage on their NP now, and then doing massive gadong crits. And so, while she does have rather decent NP gain, especially when you do get crits on those arts cards, the hits over here aren't all that important. And I know that might seem blasphemous coming from me, the extra attack guy who spouts how strong it is being a composite card that gen stars NP and does big boy damage, but realistically, you really just care about those buster cards, because you're going to be filling her up with a team of guys that are just able to just siphon NP and crit damage into her so she can just absolutely eviscerate whoever she's fighting. And that even kind of translates to her passive skills. All she's getting is a little bit of debuff resistance and 12% crit damage. So they're telling you two things here. Look, we want you to not get slowed down with whatever you're doing, and we want you to just hit the enemy really, really hard, or I guess shoot them really hard, as she is an archer. So let's start diving into her actual skills over here, starting off with skill 1, and brace yourselves, this is a really complicated skill. She's gonna give herself 30% buster damage for 3 turns, and she's gonna give herself 50% buster crit damage for 3 turns on a low 5-turn cooldown. And that's about it, but that's all this needs to do. I shouldn't have to tell you this, but whenever you see this skill is up and you're ready to do damage, you click this skill. Whenever you want to fire the NP, you click this skill. You want to do some crits, you see you got buster cards, you brought a friend Koyanskaya, she popped that 3rd skill, popped the 2nd skill, dropped some stars, gave you star weight on those buster cards, you pop this skill immediately. There's really no rocket science, there's no extra theories that go into this one. You want to do damage, you pop this skill. Although I will say it is really nice that it is on a 5-turn cooldown, because if you are using her with Koyanskaya, by the time that this would normally go on cooldown because of her 2-turn cooldown reduction, this will immediately be available. So effectively, if you're bringing the friend Koyanskaya, you can kind of think of it as a 3-turn cooldown, and so it'll effectively come back up. But she is one of those characters that, because going over to her 2nd skill that she plays in a certain way, you might not necessarily want to just bust all over the place as soon as you get that 1st skill available, because this is giving her, sure, it's giving her a debuff removal. That's really strong and everything, but the most important thing over here is the fact that she has a regenerating buff, which means at the end of every turn, she's going to apply a buff that's going to give her 50% crit damage that only lasts for 1 crit, but it lasts for 5 turns. So effectively, you can stack 5 of these together and get 250% crit damage if that is your prerogative. And this does last for 5 turns, so if you want to kind of build up or try to find out what the maximum amount of damage is that you can do with this skill, you can wait this out for the full 5 turns, and then it'll immediately be available again, which is very, very strong. It effectively has no downtime, as it's only really going to be down for 1 turn, or immediately available if you have somebody like Koyanskaya that's lowering your skill cooldown reduction, and she is still providing herself 10 stars every turn for 3 turns, meaning that it does take the weight off of some of your other supports to provide more stars for her. You'll see that I'm using somebody like Ace the Savior in a lot of my setups. She's just so good that it's hard to not bring her into these, you know, providing stars, providing battery every turn, giving attack. You know, she might just be a little good, but having those additional star regens on top of her own effectively means you don't really need to worry about, say, popping a Merlin NP. I believe in the last gameplay, or it might be the first one, I can't remember which one is which, but our Merlin goes down really early, and I was planning on using him to kind of have us sustain stars through all 5 turns, but he kind of got butt blasted by Galatea over there, so we ran out of that. But as you can see, we are still able to do pretty good crit damage. We're not really wanting for stars or anything, just because her having this ability on top of your other star genning abilities is just very, very powerful, when the main thing that she wants to be doing is smacking people with crits and then doing big NP damage. Removing debuffs is very strong, but do also remember that if an enemy does stun you, you can't use this to unstun yourself. You would need debuff immunity for that. But again, is very nice if they're trying to reduce your damage by lowering attack, buster damage, you know, NP damage now, because our NP can actually do a whole lot of damage as well. It's just nice to have in the back pocket. And then finally, there's her third skill. Because of the way that you want to play with this servant, in allowing herself to build up the crit damage and build up the other regenerating buff that she has on this third skill, having 3 hits of dodge that last for 3 turns is very, very strong. Again, you'll see this in some of the gameplays, that just having those evasions means she's able to just kind of stick around as she is regenerating these buffs and it giving herself a better shot at the chances on her NP, because what she has on the third skill is like the second one. Every single turn for 5 turns, she's going to give herself a 15% increase in her buff success rate. And remember, these are additive. So if you have a 15% buff success rate and you have a 85% chance to proc a buff, you now have a 100% chance to proc that buff. As long as the enemy or nothing else is really messing around with that, it just adds into each other. And because of how her NP works, which we'll get into in just a second, you want to give yourself a couple of stacks of these so you can guarantee all of the buffs on her NP, because that's when you start to do nuclear levels of damage. She's also going to be giving herself star weight on her buster cards for 3 turns. There's no gimmicks tied to this. You know, normally it's like star weight for 1 turn, or star weight that's like kind of crappy and doesn't really do all that much. But this one is some moderate weight, but it does apply for all 3 turns, which does allow her to be competitive when you're using her with, say, your caster servants that have naturally higher star weight. Even though, again, she is an archer and her natural star weight is pretty decent, it does almost guarantee that you're going to be getting those crits, because again, this is one of those big nuclear servants. You know, it's not somebody that, I mean, I guess you could use them in a long drawn out challenge quest type of fight, but realistically, you're either going to bring her in at the end or you're going to bring her in at the very beginning, kind of stall around for a little bit, and then just try to butt blast the enemy into oblivion. Or at least that's how I like to play with her in the game. So as you can see, all 3 of the skills, it's like skill 1 is just giving you extra damage. Skill 2 is giving you a little bit of survivability in that you can remove debuffs. It can ensure that you can get around some really weird debuffs that might lower your damage or anything, and then gives you more crit damage. This one kind of turns on her NP and makes it a bit stronger while also giving her some survivability. And if we look at that NP, it is very, very strong. It has definitely been upgraded, and you'll see there's a lot of percentages on here. Now, if you want to be safe, you can just wait 2 turns. Because think of it like this. You have 3 different things that want to proc on her NP. You have Pierce Evasion, you have 2 slots of NP damage, and you have an Arts and a Buster buff that are at 85, 55, and 70% respectively. And I'm going to do the math for you guys, but if you effectively wait 1 turn, you guarantee the Pierce Evasion. If you wait 2 turns, you guarantee the 20% Arts and Buster buff, which again help the NP gain on Arts crits, and the Buster damage is buffing, well, the NP damage and the Buster crits that she's going to be doing. But then if you wait 3 turns, you guarantee both of those NP damage buffs, which is 40% NP damage. And I don't really think I ever brought her with Oberon, or I brought her once in one of these setups, but that's really good. You know, Oberon loves to overclock NP damage on people, and getting a 40% Buster buff on top of the 20% he gives on his first skill, and again, the 100% increase that he has on skill 3, that is insanely strong. I don't think you always have to wait the full 3 turns to try to get maximum damage out of this, because she is just going to be hitting really hard, as you can see in the background gameplay. But if you can afford to do it, I mean, why not? Just blast the enemy into oblivion. Just send them to the Shadow Realm. Like, who cares, dude? And then she also has a power mod against king enemies, which isn't the most common thing in the world. It's not like you're going to be seeing this all over the place. Like, oh my goodness, you know, I'm proccing this in every single boss fight I go into. But there also is, to be fair, a fair amount of servants that are rocking the king trait. And I will also say, to her credit, a decent bit of those are sabers and berserkers. So she cannot not only get power mod against them, but she's also super effective on them with type advantage. This is also fine to bring her type neutral into some of these fights. If you want to go, say, fight someone like Gilgamesh or Napoleon or Maeve, Iskandar, she can still do some really good damage. The only ones that aren't really free eats are the Lancers in here, but even then, I'm sure if you are dedicated enough, maybe you tossed a couple of Grails her way, maybe some Gold Foes, she could probably just blast them into oblivion. It really is one of those bonus things that she's able to do. I don't think you should be looking at her as like, oh, this is going to be my Kingslayer servant. This really should just be, this is my main DPS servant. This is the servant I'm going to be bringing to just absolutely eviscerate people. Because you might go to something like, say, the FGO NP damage chart, which I do think is very useful, but unfortunately it does kind of hurt a lot of the low rarity servants because their NP5 isn't really compared with like the NP1 of like the 5-star servants. Because realistically, you're gonna have her at NP5, but you might not have a Asphotomon at NP3, or you might not have an NP5 Moriarty or Emiya Alter. And so 9 times out of 10, she's going to be out-damaging them base to base at NP5 to their NP1, plus the ability to stack up for basically free. And I think that's the major thing that you should be concerned about with this servant, or not really concerned about, but just keeping in the front of your mind is that this servant does this massive amount of damage for effectively just sitting around for like a turn or two maybe. And then again, God forbid you're fighting a king attributed enemy because they're going to get sent into the sun. I mean, no wonder. What was this, the person that like assassinated Nobu? I'm pretty sure, if I'm remembering their lore correctly, like no wonder they took them out. If you know anything about Nobu and Fate, she's an absolute beast. People that have been reading Redline know exactly what I'm talking about, and the fact that this lady took her out, I mean, that's a little nutty. And now that she's able to do nuclear levels of damage, I can see how she was able to accomplish that feat. But yeah, is this servant worth leveling? I thought she was worth leveling when she initially came out, because it was one of those servants that you could still get some pretty decent levels of damage with. It's just the only thing that they added was they gave her the ability to get the king attribute buff. They gave her higher damage scaling, but they also removed this really dumb effect that her previously unbuffed NP had that removed all of her buff success rates. Which means follow-up NPs were not nearly as strong, but now, because they're like 5 turns, and especially with someone like Koyenskaya in the team, they might immediately be ready to go, or you might be stacking the regeneration buffs. It makes her so insane that, yeah, you might have to wait a turn or two, but once you get going with this servant, you really don't stop. And sure, there is like an effective time where after a good couple of turns, you know, you'll run out of all of her buffs, and you're like, okay, I gotta wait like 2 or 3 turns because Koyen's skills are down and her skills are down, but by that point, the enemy should be paced. I mean, there's not going to be a whole lot of bosses in the game that are going to be able to survive this onslaught of NPs and massive crit damage, because do not forget, she's stacking crit damage in the back as well. It can be a little annoying, I will say, the fact the crit damage buffs only last for 1 time, in that if you're going for like a Brave Chain or something and you don't order it correctly, say you go for like Buster NP, then Quick Card, and then like an Arts or Buster card at the very end, the Quick Card will eat all of the crit damage buffs there, and it can kind of be a little bit annoying. So just keep in mind that you always want your first critical card to be the one that you want to do damage with, or if you have like no crits on one card, it's fine to put it in front of the other ones, because we all love to see, you know, big damage on our NPs and our crit damage for our servant, so make sure you're not wasting those at the very least. But yeah, servant is definitely worth looking forward to, definitely worth leveling. You can try to tinker around with her a little bit when she does release. Just know, again, she'll get a lot better when she does receive that buff. Although, again, she comes out in like October for the Tolmaias event, and then her buff is in like November the next year, so you do have about a year to go ahead and start grailing her up, getting her gold foes and all that good stuff, so you can just unleash nuclear apocalyptic levels of destruction on the game. But let me know in the comment section down below how excited you are for this servant to come out to the NA version of the game. Again, I am going to try to do these low star legends videos, which are more free-to-play videos as well, because I might start covering other free-to-play servants that they're all going to be available on the Evocation gacha. So keep an eye peeled on that community tab over there on the channel, because I'll usually throw out the poll a couple of days before the Friday, you know, kind of get some votes in to see what you guys want to see. As per usual, if you found this video to be entertaining or informative, maybe even both if I'm lucky, I would appreciate a like in the video and a subscription to the channel, as it does help me out more than you know. If you want to catch me live, I go live every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, starting at about 6 p.m. Central Time over here on the YouTube and on Twitch. I dual stream, so whichever platform you prefer using, you can go ahead and use that. That is going to be in the description down below, as well as the Discord Discord server where you can go interact with other people that are playing FGO, ask questions, talk about other gacha games, maybe even play some Marvel Rivals, because that is kind of infecting the server a little bit at the moment. And if you want to go that extra mile, there is the Patreon down there where we are kind of slowly starting to roll out some Patreon exclusive videos. There is a patron exclusive channel in the Discord if you do subscribe to the Patreon, where you can suggest videos to be uploaded over on the Patreon. You know, I will do any patron exclusive content. I just need them to kind of interact with me and stuff. But hey, as soon as they told me to do one, I did it like the next day. So I'll get on the ball with it, but you just got to hit me up with a video. Tell me what you want to see. But again, it is only there for people that want to go that extra mile. If you don't want to do that, it is perfectly fine. I'm not going to get offended or anything. I do want to add though that I am not going live today, the Friday that this is going up, because I'm actually going to be seeing an old friend of mine. We're going to go hang out, and unfortunately he's getting off of work right when I'm going to be going live. So I'm choosing to go actually hang out with him instead of going for the stream. So please forgive me for that. I will probably make it up to you guys in some other way. But with all that being said, I will catch you guys in the next video. Have yourselves a nice day. Have a good weekend, and I'll catch y'all in the next one. Peace, late guys.